The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people are evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, the group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
Aloha everyone, I am Dane DuPont. Phil Bong is not going to be able to join us as usual today. His internet connection is just not able to keep up with the demands of the live stream, but he was able to record a video update that we're going to replay here. So we're going to be able to do kind of our normal update. It's just going to be me on the live today. So with that, let's go ahead and get into Philip's update. Before we do that, we do have a few media releases from the USGS, that one of which we see here, taken from March 2nd, so yesterday. And this shows the current progression of the lava lake and the deterioration of the cone, as well as that adjacent pit to the cone, which lava flows from and down into this little inside pool inside the lava pit. All right, so let's get into Phil's update then.
Aloha everyone, I am geologist Philip Ong, and this is your weekly Kilauea volcano video update. You guys can see from the screen here, this is the V1 camera courtesy of the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, from which we take most of our data, showing the volcano in eruption today. You can see the west vent cone here in the middle with a west vent pond. There's the cone, with the west vent pond here still overflowing its sides. So for the past week, we've actually had quite a few variations in lava level. You can see the lava depth over the past week here has had high points and low points. These low points are the pauses, and so we've actually had within the last week the end of one pause, a second one, a third one, and a fourth one, right? So it's almost every day or so, right? Maybe 3.5 or so over the last 7 days. Every other day, fairly frequently here, right? And this is mirroring a pressure in a volcano we've seen in a tilt, as has been the case for the last few months now. Looking at a larger time scale, this is the last month, you can see there's a very, very slow rise in the lava level. And we see these variations up and down as these little drops and rises, lava level draining and then refilling after the pause. And after each pause, the lava continues to come back, essentially surging forth, coming out of all the different vents that it can around that west vent complex. You can see here at this right end of the plot, for the last week, we've actually had these closer together in our spacing, right? Whereas the previous week, we had a long gap without any of those events. And we've had other times where we haven't had any big ones, but just kind of small fluctuations as well. So the pattern now has been more regular, the large pauses occurring essentially every other day. And here's the 1 month tilt corresponding to that. As far as gas emissions, they remain the top concern for the volcano, and they are still following the pattern of the tilt and the lava emissions as well. There is a month summit tilt with an ambient station at Sand Hill, and this is where the wind blows the gas across the sensor. So you have somewhat of a variation based on the weather, but also you see the variation based on the flux of the volcano as well. Probably a more accurate total measure of the gas coming out, and more comprehensive, I should say, since it's not only at one site, is this plot over here. So you can see the fully integrated gas emissions, SO2 emissions here, and you can see it's ranged from 2,000 tons per day, more or less 2,500 during those emission times, and during the pauses, it's down in these few hundred tons per day. It's typical of the past few months pattern as well. And we'll move on, keep this brief for today. Here's the emissions of SO2 across the island, given that 2,000 tons per day, more or less, 2,500 tons per day emission rate at Kilauea based on the current weather conditions. So this is the main impact. There's still no lava threat to anyone based on current conditions, and no signs of magma migrating anywhere else in the volcano. So this SO2 is the gas. You might see a little bit more of the visible VOG particles, particulate matter, the SO4. And that has a similar dispersal pattern as well. Not just South Hawaii, but also in this Hilo and North area with our winter weather. In a national park, everything is in the green, and we've covered this in detail before, but the park, if you're planning to visit the park for lava viewing, you can check the website for current conditions that day. This website is great. You can find all of that and the viewing guidelines on the national park website, so check that out if you're planning to go. We will cover the viewing at the volcano here briefly as well. As before, 2 sites, one in the north at Wekahuna. We'll look at that first, and then most of the discussion will be from the southern viewpoint of the Kanakakoi overlook, looking at the lava lake over this way. Right? While we're at it, I can just point out that the S1 camera is somewhere in the vicinity over here. So it's looking more in this direction. This is a similar view that we'll use as a proxy for this S1 view over here. So starting off, we'll show you guys, this is the F1 camera, thermal camera looking from the west, and I'm showing this because this backside of the crater is a part that you can possibly see lava flows from that northern Uikahuna area. So that's what our main focus is on this particular frame. Some of these closer areas to the left might be behind the cliff side there, so I'm not sure if you'd see anything from here directly, although you can see plenty of glow from there. We can see some low-level lava flow activity, actual red lava flowing from that viewpoint perhaps, if you catch it at the right level of activity over here on this backside of the crater. Whereas the Kanakakoi side on the south has a better view of this more active, more vigorously erupting area. We'll focus on that next. And I'll start off by sharing with you guys this video. This is actually a time-lapse. I've sped it up by 100 times here from the Kanakakoi overlook within Hawaiʻi Volcanoes National Park from that southern side there. And here's our main west vent complex. The cone is largely over here. We have that west vent pond, as I've been calling it, that's over here on the side, to the right side from this perspective, bubbling up, and you can see it spilling over mostly into the lava lake, the active lava lake, which you can see circulating here in the foreground, this whole area over here. Right? It's forming this crust, so you see a lot more dark colors with only the red glowing between those cracks in the crust. But also notably, there's a new vent that's been active on this southernmost part of this west vent complex. And this has been putting out lava flow, as you can see in this video, is pouring around and coming into the main active crater. Video was featured on Hawaii News Now this past week. Mahalo KC Land for sharing that for us. And we'll get different views of this particular feature over here on the left. This is one of the things to look for. The other thing to look for is changes in the west vent cone, as well as changes over here in this west vent pond. So moving on from here, looking at some of these S1 webcam images for some of these features you might look at. So this image taken at right between light and dark is showing quite a bit of glow from the cone area right here. You can't see much behind it as well, but I really wanted to focus more so on this left side at this new southern outlet and what it's producing and starting to form over here. And that seems to be a little bit of a pond basin almost, is what I'm tempted to call it here. It's this little depression. The lava is coming and filling into it, and you can see in my first video there, the lava was pouring over the side down into the main active vent. But it hasn't done that persistently, and it's actually filling and seems to be forming a feature over here next to the southern outlet. So it's almost like a separate little pond that overflows into here, and it also has put out flows to the backside as well. So we'll examine that here as our next curiosity of the week here. Okay, so we're really zoomed into the F1 camera here. I've kind of reframed it for you guys, and this is that south side vent. We were looking from the opposite direction, so the basin is over here, in fact. So I'll play this, and you guys can see that over the past week, there's a flow that put out lava that poured into the crater that direction. But you see some of these later pulses of surges that come forth as the pauses end don't go all that way. It may start off with a small stream over here that quickly ends. Most of the flow comes back to the southwest or to the east here, and you can see the next effusion that just occurred in the last day here or so put out just a little bit of lava into this little basin, and not much beyond that. Pull that back. Here's the most recent little effusion. The one before that you can see was going more to the southwest here, and as well as the east. And prior to that was the one that was going to the northeast here towards this main active lava lake. And that's our curiosity there. And we can look at that from the S1 camera in a full time lapse for the past week here. So there is that area we were focused in on from the F1 camera. I can zoom in on it a little more here to start. See a bit of that dome fountain. And you see lava filling in this area here, flowing here to the east, occasionally falling over. But you see when the lava withdraws, it's forming these shadow in this image. Is our curiosity here this week. Okay, so the other things visible while we're looking at this, and considering what you might see from the Kanekakoi overlook, you can occasionally see this west pond vent overflowing to the west and northwest as well. That's been less frequent over the last week, but there have been some big flows visible sometimes along the back wall here of the crater. This is also visible from that southern side. So that's one thing. I'm going to zoom it out and pan over. And one other thing that's noteworthy is there's some of these areas that are discolored here in this bottom part of the view, right in here. See all this whitish color in the daytime, and at nighttime you're seeing some glow coming from cracks in this area. So there could be areas of the crater floor that you see glowing cracks coming out and possibly lava squeezing out of some of these areas. We tracked this a little bit over the past few weeks, close to our original west vent from the last eruption that's now somewhat in the northwest quadrant of that hardened lava crust. I wanted to show you this here. For a whole last week we've had lava glowing in these cracks over here. So not just in one part of the crater, this is happening in multiple parts, different perspectives here as well. And if I scroll a little bit further here, so you can see our central island, and we still have this glowing opening to the east of it here. And this is one that put out lava we featured in our time lapse last week, and it's still active over here, not putting out any lava, but you can see it's still glowing. And of course, further over in this northern quadrant over here of the crust of the lava lake, we're still having occasional ooze-up flows, although not as frequent as we had in the previous month or so, I would say. And that's something that's also mentioned in USGS reports. Okay, so let's zoom it back out, give you the full view here. So here, depending on when you come, you might be lucky and see this surge phase and see the lava surging into the basin. or you might see it simply circulating, or you might see it during one of those pauses where you only see a little bit of glow from one of these pits, or sometimes some spattering still, or some collapses of the wall. And certainly it's not as active all the time, and it's a little bit hit and miss, but certainly it's changing a lot, and just about anything is possible as far as what you might see in landscape change if you're visiting a national park for lava viewing. So that's our S1 camera. Our curiosity there this week is this little pond here on the side. But one other thing you might be noticing, and I'll zoom in a little bit here, is that our main basin of this active lava lake right through here is having some little bit of a separation on this southeast quadrant of it, right? So almost here at the end, you might have seen that flash up there, and maybe I'll just advance it right here to the still frame. And you can see that as this main lake is refilling, there's a little bit of a division here, something separating it, some hardened lava perhaps, some kind of septum developing, and besides lava actually draining and cooling and leaving this hardened remains of the drained lava lake there. When it comes back in, all that stuff can be piling up and can be creating this barrier. That's one component. Probably more minor is the fact that there is bulging of this whole crater floor ongoing as lava is coming in below it, and the crater is still somewhat pinned on the edges, and so you see some ooze up flows, but also you're seeing bulging in the middle of the crater here. So there could be some deformation from below coming in as well. Any other thing might be the filling rate of lava. As lava is filling in here, it has to reach a certain height to actually overtop this barrier and then pour in here, right? And then of course we wonder, like, how well is this thing draining? Is it draining the same as everywhere else? And those are questions we can't really get at a whole lot here. But this brings us to our time lapse of the week, which is a zoom in of that S1 camera view, focusing especially on this quadrant over here on the bottom right. And so this one is spanning just the last couple of days. And let me see if I can zoom it in even more for you guys. Catch the view of this here. What's interesting to me is that we've had, in the last 2 days or so, we've had these two different pauses and surges forth. And so you're seeing here the most recent one. The first one that comes in here, you can see it fills the crater in fairly quickly. And the second one takes a while. And we see this lava falls cascading over the wall of this newly formed separated pit here. And by the time of this recording, you can see it's filled all the way up and likely be overflowing the edges as well. So this is just another interesting feature here that we're catching on this time lapse, and wanted to point that out for you guys and share it as something else to look for. You might see this kind of thing if anyone is overlooking the last couple of days. You likely have some amazing videos of this. Check that out. Okay, there's not been a whole lot of media this week. I did want to mention that earthquakes. Earthquakes are normal as they have been over the past couple of weeks as well. There is one deep earthquake under the south flank, but it's nothing that alarming. It's likely part of the conduit to Kilauea rather than the south flank itself. And otherwise, we're still having magnitude 3 earthquakes in Pahala. There's still magnitude 3 under the south flank. Still some around Mauna Loa, but Mauna Loa overall is pretty quiet and is not something I'm going to mention anymore today. There's nothing worth informing you guys of any changes that are significant there. So everything is normal in Mauna Loa. We've summed up Kilauea here. And just to finish things off, I want to remind you guys that all this information is coming from the USGS Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. Webcams, reports, these daily updates. They're putting out reports both in the morning and at around 3 p.m. every day now, updating viewing conditions for the evening in the national park, so you can check that out. And these reports have become a lot more detailed as well, so you can come in here and see exactly when a tremor is changing, when a tilt's changing, making note of the magnitudes of the variations and fluctuations of lava lake. So lava lake, for example, decreased 12 meters, 39 feet throughout the day yesterday, and then rose 9 meters, 30 feet over the previous 8 hours to this update, which was this morning. The highest point has risen approximately 97 meters, 318 feet since eruption began, with a total volume of 45 million cubic meters, 59 million cubic yards, although that was now over a month ago. So this value is something I would caveat that's dated by now. It's likely a bigger number than this. All right, so mahalo, you guys. I'm sorry I could not answer questions live today, but we'll collect those still and address them next week. Mahalo.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Phil will be back with us next week with more regular scheduled programming. That's it for his update, but was concise and did get through most of the details. We do have a little bit more media to go through. First, the KW camera here, and the time lapse that's been taken of it over the past week. And we can see much of the activity that's going on, especially with that cascading pond system that's now seemingly being established inside the pit, with that new upper pit and that new lower pit. And one thing about this time lapse that you can see coming up here is that little lip inside that lowest pond, that separated, now divided pond in the southeast or southwest, sorry. And right about here, you'll be able to see it, that little lip right there. And that's been building up over the previous week. And we also have some images that were provided by USGS yesterday in their overflight. And we can see that the lava lake is in the state of eruption right there. We got a nice shot of Mauna Loa in the background, as well as a little peek at Jaggar Museum. Come to here, and this one is in the east side of the lava lake, and this is a little feature that's been developing more and more. This looks like a hornado, but it's just slightly different. But what it indicates is that there's still active lava underneath the surface there that's able to degas or to even spatter out and continue to develop this little hornado-like feature. We come over and we can see the little pond system over to the east that's been developing beside this deteriorating cinder cone that has been the western vent. It's been going for a couple months, and that lava level has been continuing to creep up and up upon it. And this is the new viewing area, the Kilauea viewing area that the Hawaiʻi Volcanoes National Park recently opened. And when we were talking about, the best spot to go view it, it's this spot right here. Now, the previous spot was open post 2018, a little bit further down the road, and you couldn't quite see the eruption from there. So this new spot was opened up, and it provides one of the best vantage points for activity on Kilauea in decades, maybe. With that, we can get into the Volcano Watch that came out from USGS today, and this one's pretty interesting. It dives into some of the similarities between the lava lake that we see now inside Halemaumau and the lava lake that existed between 2017, 2018, and prior to that. It mostly focuses on the tilt and the relationship between the tilt and the level of the lava lake. They kind of act like a barometer on one another. But in 2017 and 2018, the interaction or the link between the lava lake and the tilt was much more pronounced, in that the lava lake very much shadowed the tilt signal. But now there's a little bit of a lag going on. We still see the interaction and the correlation between the tilt and the lava level. But now there's a little bit of a difference. Instead of lava popping out at the beginning of the inflation cycle, the inflation has to basically reach the beginning of the deflation cycle. So draw a line across where it starts to drop down, and that's about where the lava will pop back up. And they try and indicate this with all of the markings on the map. As a good volcano watch, we do have that one posted on hawaiitracker.com if you want to check that out. And otherwise, it says that there's no means that right now that the eruption could get more vigorous. This regime of intermittent pauses and renewals could continue for a while without any changes. There may even be time where there isn't enough pressure left to drive the current eruption. However, Kilauea volcano rarely goes without a change for long, so we will be sure to stay active and prepared for the unexpected. And that's probably a good piece of advice there. But as of right now, this is how the USGS is able to provide those 3 p.m. updates to kind of forecast what the viewing experience will be like for that night. And it has to do with this relationship between the ground tilt and the lava level, and all of these different deflation inflation cycles that we've seen over the previous couple months. One last thing I want to talk about is a new piece of content, a video series that's come out of the Hawaiʻi Volcanoes National Park, Ikihana no Eau. And it's a talk story session with a bunch of cultural practitioners. And I'm going to show a little bit of this because it's really well done. We're not going to go through all of it, just a couple minutes of it, and kind of give you guys a taste.
Aloha mai kākou and welcome to Hawaiʻi Volcanoes National Park. I'm Ranger Kīlauea. For many years, the park has shared authentic Hawaiian cultural practices in our in-person Ike Hana no e ao or Experience the Skillful Work demonstrations. Today, I want to take our native traditions beyond our shores into your living room in hopes that you may find a deeper connection to our culture and inspire you to truly find what makes Hawaii so special. So hele mai, make ready, and let's learn together.
Poi is a staple food of the indigenous people of Hawaii, and ku'ikalo is a process of making poi from cooked taro root. For Native Hawaiians, as they eat poi, they are reminded of their older brother, Haloa Nakalau Kapalili, who through our cosmology story, fed us and continues to feed us today.
We need more people to perpetuate and learn how to ku'ikalo so that we can keep this important practice alive.
Aloha, I'm Ranger Sean.
Aloha, my name is Hayden Kwananui Tucker.
Join us as we learn the traditional method of making poi. Aloha mai, I'm here with Hayden.
Right. If that interests you, I went ahead and put the link to it in the chat. Go ahead and check out that video series. It's 23 minutes long. We went through the first 2 minutes of it. Really interesting piece that they were able to put together there. And with that, we are just doing a short update today since we don't have Phil, so we're going to forego the question and answer segment. But we are going to do thank yous. We'd like to thank the viewers that did turn out. We rely on viewers like you to help spread this message. We don't have the advertising budget of basically any mainstream media organization, so we rely on the viewers to help spread the message and get this type of content out to other people that might be interested in it. Likes, shares, and subscribes always do well, but also comments that are made after the video is done on the live. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm, so we appreciate everybody that helps that way. If you are so inclined to donate monetarily, we do take donations on hawaiitracker.com/support. We also would like to recognize Kilauea's Bar and Grill in the heart of Pahoa and their new location out in Orchid Land. And they've been a longtime supporter of this stream and the content that we produce on Hawaii Tracker. And we appreciate Kilauea's Bar and Grill. If you're looking for that little local twist on some traditional dishes at reasonable prices, definitely check out Kilauea's. The Pahoa location is a little hit or miss in terms of it being open, but that Orchid Land one is open and a really nice new spot. So definitely check out Kilauea's, and we appreciate their longtime support. We do post everything on Hawaii Tracker. That's hawaiitracker.com. And so you'll get the chronological list of all the different content that we've been putting up, including that video that was featured on Hawaii News Now. So you can go through things like this and keep up with Philip and I and avoid some of the stuff that might be out on the internet elsewhere. So we appreciate everybody that turned out. Until next week when we get back to our regular scheduled program, I'm Dane DuPont, Philip Ong. Aloha.